Okay, at this point, the entire top of this door has been color sanded. Uh, I did want to talk a minute about the blocks. So these blocks need to be firm enough that they don't conform to the shape of the panel, at least on these long flat surfaces. You don't want it to. You want the block to remain rigid. Otherwise, you're just going to put waves in the panel, and that's what you're trying to get out. Also, when blocking, you're going to block to a body line like this. You're going to roll off the edge of it. You're not going to roll over the top of it. That softens those body lines and makes them less crisp. And if a car's been redone several times, particularly by people that don't really know what they're doing, those body lines can get quite soft. So you'll block this way on this one, and then you'll come the other way on the other one, and you'll block off that edge. And eventually it's going to leave you a nice crisp line there, which is what you're after. Now, once the panel's been fully cut, I just use a pencil and go back and circle the areas of imperfections. This area up here ended up working out fine. We exposed a little bit of body work, no big deal. We'll get that with the next round of fill prime. This is a slight low. You can see the speckle right in the middle of that. It's very faint. That's so close that it doesn't need anything. The next round of build prime will take care of that. But what did get exposed was this area here. And this is one, particularly right here, this is one I can actually feel in the panel. So it's low. And you know, the thing about experience, it takes sometimes. When I mentioned reading these panels is important, what is actually going on right here, although not necessarily highlighted by the speckles, is there is a crease running all the way from here all the way to here. And my guess is that whatever creased this, kids, bicycle handles, whatever, the impact point was right here, because this is where it was the lowest, where this is the worst damage. And then up here, it tapers to almost nothing. So this part of this would probably go out with just another application of the build prime. But I'm going to go ahead and put some putty in this area here. I did get behind it and work it out with a pretty technical tool. I used the edge of a 2x2 and pried against this from the inside to raise that area up as much as I could, but I can't really access it to get a hammer and dolly in there due to the inner structure of the door. So it's not a significant low, or I would have caught it before we ever got this far, but it is enough so that it requires putty. Now, putty, aka Bondo, and it's not Bondo. Bondo came out in I think the 70s, and it's what gives body filler a really bad name. The reality is that today's putties are so good that if they're used properly, it makes no difference whatsoever that they're on the car. The only thing is they can't be applied heavily. It needs to be a thin layer of that, and that's what I'm going to do next. Okay, so at this point I finished cutting the entire panel here. I also switched to 150 grit sandpaper just to expedite the process, since I'm planning on reshooting this with high build anyway. As I said, I put a very light coat of high build on to begin with the intention of making this a two-step process. So in the top of the door, there were two lows. What I do is I go back and I circle any of the imperfections or any of the areas that still have speckles in them just with a pencil, and then I know I need to address those areas. So up here on the top of the panel, there was some speckles in an area here, not any bigger around than, say, an elongated quarter. And the rest of this area here, it's got this pencil line in it and then this smear of putty on it. The way it presented itself was, it was just an area of gray like this, but it was surrounded by where I've cut to the black epoxy. Now, this is the part about reading the panel that I said was important. because since there's no speckles there, it means it's not low, only it is. So what had actually happened here was up here, I could actually feel the imperfection when with my hands, and what you had was a point of impact here that was, could have been a kid's bicycle handlebar or something going by, and it hit it, and then it drug it along this entire line. Now, the end of it out here was very thin, and may or may not have gone with build prime. Probably would have, because it was undetectable, at least by hand. Up here, I got into the back of the panel, and I used another one of my very technical tools, a cut-off piece of 2x2, and I pried against some of the inner door structure to massage this area out a little bit. It's very difficult to hammer and dolly a door sometimes because you can't get your tools in there due to the inner structure of the door. So I have this now within thousandths of an inch. I mean, this whole area damage was far less than a 1/16 of an inch thick. And what I did was I took a smear of putty and I smeared this whole area, and you can see I smeared a much broader area than what the actual damage was, which I tried to film unsuccessfully prior to this. And because what you want to do is when you go back and you cut the putty, which will guide coat as well, you want that just to float out to nothing. And most of the putty, what little there is on here, is going to end up on the ground anyway. But when we're done, it'll be a perfect surface. Now, these areas here, I've left, and I'll try to bring this in. I've left these, and you can see the speckles in them. There's two lows here. This door was by far the most damaged panel on the car when we started. Actually, there was damage through here, and then this entire bottom of the door had a crease in it, and it has all gone straight. You can see the areas of black epoxy with a little bit of bodywork peeking out here where I have worked it. The next round of build prime and blocking, and this panel will be dead straight. But I'm going to go ahead and put a smear of putty on the area with the 2 circles on the bottom of the door, and then we'll block this whole door of the putty, and at that point it'll be ready for another application.